28 years of marriage taught me that the person who insists on a prenup is usually the one who ends up destroyed by it. I've decided to start a new life without you. The words hung in the air of the upscale restaurant where we'd gathered to celebrate my son's college graduation. Miranda, my wife of 28 years, stood with her champagne glass still raised, her announcement displacing the toast she was supposed to be making to Dylan's achievements. The clinking of silverware ceased, conversations halted mid-sentence. 50 pairs of eyes darted between Miranda and me, waiting for my reaction, for the tears, the shouting, the dramatic exit everyone expected. Instead, I smiled. "Congratulations on your honesty," I said. "My name is Victor Blackwood. I am 54 years old, and until this moment, I had been playing the role of the devoted husband and father perfectly. I put my own career aspirations on hold to support Miranda through 3 business ventures, 2 career changes, and countless finding herself phases. I raised our brilliant son Dylan, who sat beside me now, his graduation cap still perched on his head, his expression frozen in horror. From the corner of my eye, I could see Blake Morrison, Miranda's much younger business partner, shifting uncomfortably at the back table where he sat with people I had considered friends for decades. The same friends who apparently knew about the affair but never thought to tell me. The same Blake who had attended our Christmas parties, who had once asked me for financial advice about his consulting business. With practiced calm, I reached into my suit jacket and pulled out a sealed cream-colored envelope. I placed it gently beside Miranda's plate. "What's this?" she asked, her triumphant expression faltering. "Something for you to read later," I replied, keeping my voice steady. I turned to Dylan, whose face had gone pale. I placed my hand on his shoulder. "I am so proud of you, son. This day is still about your accomplishment." Then I stood, straightened my tie, and addressed our stunned guests. "Please enjoy your meal. I wish you all a lovely evening." With that, I walked out of the restaurant, my head held high, feeling 50 pairs of eyes following me. The heavy door swung shut behind me, cutting off the beginning of anxious murmurs. Outside, the Austin summer heat hit me like a wall, but I welcomed it. For the first time in years, I could breathe freely. Behind me, I heard the restaurant door open and slam shut, followed by Miranda's voice, no longer confident but high-pitched and frantic. "Victor, what the hell is this? What have you done?" I kept walking, allowing myself a small smile. The envelope I'd handed her contained the beginning of my revenge, one I'd been meticulously planning for months. I'd always been the practical one in our marriage. While Miranda dreamed big and took risks, I maintained the stability our family needed. I was the one who saved for Dylan's education when Miranda invested unwisely in her friend's restaurant venture. I was the one who worked extra hours as a finance manager at Meridian Corp. when her midlife crisis led her to quit her stable position to follow her passion in marketing consulting, a passion that lasted approximately 8 months before she grew bored. My own dreams of opening a financial consultancy for executives were perpetually on hold. After Dylan graduates, I told myself. After Miranda finds stability. 3 months ago, I noticed discrepancies in our joint accounts, small transfers to an account I didn't recognize. Having spent 20 years managing our family finances, these irregularities stood out like red flags. I could have confronted Miranda immediately, but something held me back. Perhaps it was intuition, or perhaps it was the growing distance between us over the past year. Instead, I began quietly investigating. What I discovered was worse than I imagined. Miranda had been systematically moving funds to a separate account for over a year. She had also been taking Blake to expensive restaurants, purchasing business equipment, and looking at commercial property, all while telling me we needed to tighten our belts for retirement. Then came the text messages I discovered when Miranda left her phone unlocked. Messages about their new business together, messages about how she was finally breaking free, messages about their plans for the day after Dylan's graduation, the day she had chosen to make her grand exit from our marriage. What Miranda had forgotten, or perhaps never fully grasped, was that I had been a financial professional for 30 years. I understood money trails, I knew how to trace assets, and most importantly, I remembered the prenuptial agreement we had signed 28 years ago when she had more family money than I did. The agreement she had insisted upon, ironically to protect her future earnings, contained a business partnership fidelity clause that would prove to be her undoing. While Miranda plotted her escape with Blake, I was building my case. I consulted with attorneys, I documented every hidden transfer, I gathered evidence of their business affair, I prepared divorce papers. I timed everything perfectly, knowing Miranda would want to wait until after Dylan's graduation to avoid ruining his big day. What she didn't expect was that I would serve the divorce papers the morning of the graduation, but with the papers still safely hidden in court records, not yet accessible to her. What Miranda didn't know was that I was always 3 steps ahead. I didn't return to the restaurant. Instead, I drove to our home, a spacious colonial in Austin's historic district that we had purchased 15 years ago. The house that Miranda had already promised to Blake according to text messages that she didn't realize I had seen. I parked in the driveway and calmly entered what had been our shared space for over a decade. Everything looked the same. The family photos on the walls, the antique grandfather clock that had been my father's, the worn leather couch where Miranda and I had once dreamed of our future together. Yet everything had changed. I went upstairs to the master bedroom and opened the closet. Miranda's clothing was already packed in suitcases, hidden in the back, ready for her planned departure tomorrow. I smiled at her predictability. She had always been meticulous about planning, but careless about the important things. My phone buzzed incessantly with messages from friends at the restaurant, from Dylan, even from Miranda's sister Rachel, who had flown in for the graduation. I responded only to my son, "I'm okay. This isn't your burden to carry. Enjoy your graduation day. We'll talk tonight. I love you." I had protected Dylan from the truth for months, not wanting to overshadow his final semester with family drama. He would be angry that I hadn't told him, but I knew he would understand eventually. Dylan had inherited my practicality along with his mother's charisma, a powerful combination that had helped him graduate with honors. 3 hours later, I heard Miranda's car in the driveway. The front door slammed open. "Victor!" she shouted, her voice echoing through the house. "Where are you?" I was sitting in the living room, calmly reviewing documents on my laptop. I closed it as she stormed in, her face flushed with anger, the envelope clutched in her hand. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded, waving the papers. "You served me with divorce papers today, of all days." "I thought it aligned nicely with your plans," I replied calmly. "You wanted to start your new life. I'm simply helping facilitate the transition." "You had no right to—" "I had every right," I interrupted, my voice steady. "Just as you had every right to choose Blake. We all make choices, Miranda." "The prenup expired years ago," she said, her voice suddenly smug. "Any lawyer will tell you that." I allowed myself a small smile. Actually, it didn't. Section 12 specifically states that the business partnership fidelity clause remains in effect for the duration of the marriage. Your lawyer should have explained that to you. "Oh wait, you didn't consult one, did you?" The color drained from her face as reality sank in. The prenup she had insisted upon to protect her potential wealth would now cost her everything. The house, the vacation property in San Antonio, her portion of our retirement accounts. Her grand gesture at the restaurant had just become the most expensive announcement of her life. "You can't do this to me," Miranda said, collapsing onto the couch. "We built this life together." "And you chose to end it," I replied, "though not in the way you planned." Miranda's phone buzzed persistently in her pocket. She glanced at it, then ignored it. Blake, no doubt, wondering where she was and why she wasn't following their carefully orchestrated plan. "You've always been calculating, Victor, but this is cold," she said, trying a different approach. "What about our history? 28 years together means nothing?" I studied her, this woman I had loved for nearly 3 decades. The woman who had held my hand through the stress of my father's death, the woman who had once surprised me with a weekend trip to New Orleans for our 10th anniversary. When had she changed? Or had she always been this person, and I had been too devoted to notice? "Our history meant everything to me," I answered truthfully. "That's why your betrayal hurt so deeply." Her expression softened momentarily, perhaps seeing an opening. "Then maybe we can fix this. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake, Miranda. This was a calculated plan spanning more than a year. You systematically moved our money. You looked at property with him. You planned to announce our separation publicly to humiliate me." Her face hardened again. "You're exaggerating." "Am I?" I picked up my phone, opened the recording app, and played her own voice. "After the graduation, I'll tell him it's over. A public setting is better. He won't make a scene in front of everyone." Then Blake's voice. "And he has no idea about the money?" Miranda again, "None. Victor trusts me completely." "That's his weakness." The blood drained from her face. You recorded our conversations? That's illegal. Not in Texas when one party consents, I responded, and not when it's in your own home. I didn't record your private moments with Blake. I'm not cruel. Just the conversations about your plans to defraud me. Miranda stood suddenly agitated. I need to make some calls. Of course, I said. Your attorney might be a good start. I'll be staying at Rachel's tonight. Rachel's, she sputtered. My sister's house. I nodded. She's quite upset with you, actually. She was the one who first spotted you and Blake together last Christmas. She didn't tell me immediately. She confronted you first. You promised her it was nothing, that you would end it. When she realized you hadn't, she came to me. This was another blow she hadn't anticipated. Rachel and I had always been close, but Miranda never imagined her own sister would choose my side. Everyone's betraying me, she muttered. Ironic, isn't it? I gathered my laptop and a small overnight bag I had packed earlier. You have until tomorrow evening to remove your things from the house. After that, the locks will be changed. As I headed toward the door, Miranda called after me, desperation in her voice. What about Dylan? Have you thought about how this affects him? I paused, anger finally breaking through my calm facade. Don't you dare use our son as a shield, Miranda. You certainly weren't thinking about him when you were planning your new business life with Blake. Her phone buzzed again. This time she looked at it and groaned. Problem? I asked. Blake is at the apartment already. He's moved his things in. I couldn't help but smile. The apartment you put in both your names? The lease you signed last month? Miranda nodded, looking confused. You might want to check with the leasing office. That application was flagged for credit issues and never completed. The agent called our home phone to verify information. I handled it myself. I walked out the door, leaving Miranda to face the first of many consequences. Her perfectly planned new life was unraveling faster than she could process. Rachel lived in a charming townhouse across town, close to the university where she taught economics. When I arrived, she greeted me with a fierce hug. I just heard from Dylan, she said, pulling me inside. Are you okay? I'm better than I expected, I admitted, following her to the kitchen where a bottle of wine was already open. I never thought Miranda would make such a spectacle, Rachel said, pouring 2 glasses. The restaurant, in front of everyone. She's lost her mind. It was meant to humiliate me, I explained, accepting the glass. A public rejection, so I couldn't fight back without looking hysterical. Rachel's face darkened. My sister always did have a flair for drama, but this is beyond anything I expected from her. We settled in her sunroom, surrounded by potted plants and bookshelves. Rachel had never married, preferring her independence and academic pursuits. Over the years, I had sometimes envied her freedom. What did you put in that envelope that made her so upset? She asked. I explained the contents, the divorce filing, the evidence of her financial deception, and most importantly, the prenuptial agreement that would leave her with far less than she had planned. The prenup, Rachel said, amused. I remember when she insisted on it. Father had just given her that money for her first business, and she was so worried about protecting it. She laughed bitterly. The irony is delicious. My phone rang, Dylan. I took a deep breath before answering. Dad, he said immediately, his voice strained. I'm coming over to Aunt Rachel's. Honey, you don't have to. I'm already on my way, he interrupted. Mom is telling everyone you've lost your mind, that you've been planning this for months. She's saying horrible things. Of course she was. Miranda always rewrote narratives to cast herself as the victim. Let her talk, I said. The truth will become clear soon enough. 20 minutes later, Dylan arrived, still in his graduation suit but with his tie loosened and his hair disheveled. He fell into my arms like he used to as a child after a nightmare. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, his voice muffled against my shoulder. I didn't want to ruin your final semester, I explained. You worked so hard for this day. He pulled back, wiping his eyes. Well, Mom took care of ruining it anyway. We moved to Rachel's living room, where Dylan finally got the full story. How I had discovered the affair, the financial deceptions, and the plans Miranda and Blake had made. I knew something was off with Mom, Dylan admitted. She's been different, distracted, always on her phone. But I never imagined. None of us want to see these things in people we love, Rachel said gently. My phone buzzed with a text message from Philip Anderson, my attorney. The emergency filing had been approved. The accounts I had identified were frozen, pending the divorce proceedings. Miranda now had limited access to funds enough for living expenses, but not enough to follow through on the business ventures she had planned with Blake. I showed the message to Rachel and Dylan. "Good," Dylan said firmly. "She deserves it." My son's loyalty warmed me, but I wasn't naive. "She's still your mother," I reminded him. "Your relationship with her is separate from what's happening between us." Dylan shook his head. "Maybe someday, but right now I can't even look at her." She hugged me this morning and told me how proud she was, all while planning to blow up our family hours later. The doorbell rang, interrupting our conversation. Rachel went to answer it, returning moments later with a troubled expression. "It's Miranda," she said. "And she's not alone." I steeled myself as Rachel led Miranda and Blake into the living room. Blake looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from one foot to the other, his eyes darting around the room. He was 39, not exactly a boy toy, but still 15 years my junior, with shoulder-length brown hair and the kind of confidence that comes from never having faced real consequences. Miranda, by contrast, looked furious. Her earlier desperation had hardened into anger. "Victor, you need to stop this insanity," she demanded. "Unfreeze the accounts. We can discuss this like reasonable adults." Dylan stood up, placing himself slightly in front of me. "Maybe you should have tried being reasonable before announcing to everyone that you were leaving Dad." Miranda's eyes widened as if just noticing our son. "Dylan, this doesn't involve you." "Doesn't involve me?" he echoed incredulously. "You blew up our family on my graduation day, and it doesn't involve me?" Blake touched Miranda's arm. "Miranda, maybe we should go." She shook him off. "No, I'm not leaving until Victor agrees to be rational about this." Rachel folded her arms. "My brother-in-law seems to be the only rational person in this scenario. You're the one who created this mess, Miranda." I remained seated, watching the drama unfold. For years, I had been the peacemaker, the one who smoothed over conflicts and kept everyone happy. That role was exhausting, and I had finally set it down. "The accounts will remain frozen until the preliminary hearing," I said calmly. "That's in 3 days. The judge will determine appropriate asset division at that time." 3 days? Miranda sputtered. "What am I supposed to do for 3 days?" "You have your personal account," I reminded her. "The one you've been funneling money into for the past year. That should be sufficient." Blake's head whipped toward Miranda. "You have a separate account? With how much in it?" An interesting dynamic was emerging. Clearly, Miranda hadn't been entirely forthcoming with Blake either. Miranda ignored his question. "This is vindictive, Victor. This isn't like you." "Perhaps you never really knew me," I replied, just as I apparently never really knew you. Dylan turned to Blake. "Did you know she was going to announce it like that? At my graduation celebration?" Blake had the decency to look ashamed. I thought she was going to talk to your father privately. The announcement today was unexpected." Miranda shot him a betrayed look. Cracks were already forming in their united front. "I think you both should leave," Rachel said firmly. "You've upset Dylan enough for one day." "Dylan," Miranda pleaded, "you understand that relationships change, don't you? Sometimes people grow apart." My son's face hardened in a way I had never seen before. "What I understand is that you're a coward who couldn't even give Dad the dignity of a private conversation. What I understand is that you were stealing from our family while I was working 2 jobs to help pay for my textbooks because you said money was tight." Miranda paled. "That's not how it was." "It's exactly how it was," Dylan cut her off. "Please leave, Mom. I can't look at you right now." The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Miranda turned to go, Blake trailing behind her. At the door, she paused and looked back at me. "This isn't over, Victor. I'll fight you on this." I met her gaze steadily. "You're welcome to try." After they left, Dylan collapsed next to me on the sofa, tears streaming down his face. I've never talked to Mom like that. I wrapped my arm around his shoulders. Sometimes standing up for what's right is painful. Rachel brought us fresh glasses of wine. "To new beginnings," she said, raising her glass. Indeed, I thought. This ending was just the beginning of something new. The preliminary hearing took place in a small courtroom on a rainy Tuesday morning. I arrived with my attorney, Philip, while Miranda came with a lawyer she had hastily retained, a young associate from a firm that specialized in corporate law, not family matters. Miranda's poor choice of representation was yet another consequence of her rushed planning. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes and no patience for dramatics, reviewed the prenuptial agreement carefully. "This document appears to be in order," she said, looking over her reading glasses at Miranda's attorney. "Do you contest its validity?" The young lawyer cleared his throat. Your Honor, we believe the agreement has expired due to the length of time that has passed. Section 18 clearly states that the duration is for the term of the marriage plus any legal proceedings resulting from its dissolution, the judge read aloud. There is no expiration date indicated. Miranda leaned forward to whisper urgently to her lawyer, who looked increasingly uncomfortable. Furthermore, the judge continued, the evidence of systematic fund transfers appears to violate the financial disclosure requirements in Section 23. She shuffled through the papers, then looked up. I am ruling to maintain the freeze on joint accounts pending full financial discovery. Mr. Blackwood's personal account will remain accessible to him. The family home will remain in Mrs. Blackwood's temporary possession during proceedings, as stipulated in the prenuptial agreement's business partnership fidelity clause. Miranda's face flushed dark red. This is outrageous, she muttered, loud enough for me to hear. The judge fixed her with a stern look. Mrs. Blackwood, I suggest you review the agreement you signed more carefully. This court will reconvene in 30 days for the full hearing after discovery is complete. As we left the courthouse, Miranda caught up to me in the hallway. Victor, please. We need to talk about this reasonably. 28 years together has to count for something. It counted for everything, I replied, until you decided it didn't. I walked away, leaving her standing alone in the courthouse corridor, the weight of her choices finally beginning to sink in. Word spread quickly through our social circle. Friends called daily, some offering support, others seeking gossip. I maintained a dignified silence about the details, simply saying, Miranda and I are separating. These things happen. Meanwhile, Miranda's carefully constructed facade was crumbling. The image she had cultivated, successful businesswoman, devoted family woman, was tarnished beyond repair. The financial freeze meant she couldn't follow through on promises made to Blake. The commercial property they had been planning to lease fell through. The business equipment she had put deposits on had to be canceled. 2 weeks after the hearing, Rachel called me, her voice tinged with amusement. Have you heard the latest? What now? Blake moved out already. I wasn't entirely surprised, but the speed was impressive. Apparently, he discovered that Miranda's business prospects aren't as solid as she claimed. The substantial savings she talked about don't exist. She told her friend Jennifer that he didn't sign up to partner with someone with financial problems. I couldn't help but laugh. She always was good at creating illusions. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding. The financial security I had always maintained in separate accounts gave me freedom Miranda hadn't anticipated. I rented a small office space downtown and began setting up the consultancy I had dreamed about for years. My first clients were 2 men going through divorces of their own. Word of mouth brought more. I specialized in helping men understand their finances during major life transitions, divorces, career changes, retirement planning. The work was immediately fulfilling in a way my corporate job never had been. Dylan, who had accepted a job with a marketing firm in Houston, called me regularly. I'm so proud of you, Dad, he told me after I described my growing client list. You're helping people during their worst moments. I'm just doing what I wish someone had done for me earlier, I replied. Preparing men for whatever might come. Being needed for my expertise rather than my caregiving was a novel and empowering experience. The final divorce hearing fell on what would have been our 29th anniversary, a fitting end to a chapter of my life that had lasted nearly 3 decades. Miranda arrived looking haggard. I later learned that her business was struggling without my financial support and guidance. Blake was long gone, already partnering with a real estate developer from Dallas. Most of our mutual friends had distanced themselves from her after learning the full story of her deception. The judge upheld the prenuptial agreement in its entirety. Miranda left with her personal possessions, her struggling consulting practice, and the money in her private account, which, after paying her attorney, was barely enough to secure a small apartment. I retained our home, my retirement accounts, and 70% of our joint investments, exactly as the prenuptial agreement stipulated in cases of business partnership infidelity. The justice was poetic. The very document Miranda had insisted upon to protect herself had become her downfall. As we left the courtroom, Miranda approached me one last time. I made a terrible mistake, she said quietly. Is there any chance we could— No, I interrupted, gentle but firm. That door's closed. I understand, she replied, and for once I believed she did. I hope you find happiness, Victor. You deserve it. It was perhaps the first honest thing she had said to me in years. 6 months later, my consultancy, Blackwood Financial Transitions, was thriving. I had moved from the small office to a larger space and hired 2 associates. I specialized in helping men secure their financial futures, particularly through major life changes. Dylan visited often, proud of what I had built. "You know what's ironic?" he said during one visit. "If Mom had just been honest from the beginning, she might have kept half of everything." "Sometimes people can't see beyond what they want in the moment," I replied. The man who had once defined himself as Miranda's husband and Dylan's father had discovered a new identity: mentor, business owner, and advocate. The envelope I had handed Miranda at the restaurant hadn't just been my escape plan. It had been the key to a door I never knew existed. Behind it, I found not just revenge, but reinvention. In securing my financial future, I had also reclaimed something far more valuable: myself. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe to check out more stories on my channel.